This is Good Morning Delhi with Chris.
Radio 1.
All right, welcome back to Good Morning Delhi with me, Chris. Just a couple of, technical issues that we're having, but you know what? The show must go on. You've heard that before, haven't you? 4 minutes past 9, and let me tell you that this morning we're going to be sharing our studio with Mr. Mukesh Gulati, and he's with the foundation of the micro, the small, the medium enterprise, and here he's going to be joining us to talk about the work that has been going on in the foundation and how they're trying to encourage enterprise of this nature. So stay tuned for that conversation. He's going to be joining me right here. Coming up right now, I've got Eddie Grant. You know how this one goes. This one's called Electric Avenue right here on 94.3 Radio 1. It's 5 minutes past 9. And of course, everything goes on right here on this frequency. Nothing changes. The music will come good and strong. Enjoy this one. I'm going to be back.
This is Good Morning Delhi with Chris.
Radio 1.
All right. Yes, that was... Eddie Grant with Electric Avenue. Right here on your favorite frequency. It's 9 minutes past 9, and we're getting down to a lot of great conversation now with Mr. Mukesh Gulati. And like I told you, he's behind the foundation for micro, small, medium enterprise. And a little introduction about him before we get into conversation. He's an engineer, an MBA from IIM Lucknow. His core area of specialization is building sustainable competitiveness among the enterprise I described, micro, small and medium. And he worked for the United Nations for 12 years on MSME clusters. He's written several books and has widely traveled across the world. He currently heads a consulting institution called Foundation for MSME Clusters, which is why he's here to talk about it. Good morning, Mukesh. Great to have you here in the studio. How are you doing?
Good morning, Chris. I'm absolutely fine.
Okay. So let's you've been doing a lot of work on this area. How many years would you say you've been at it?
25.
25 years. So you are an authority, and I'm going to just shut up and listen to you. I'm going to just throw the questions at you. Let's get some perspective here. So when you talk micro, small, medium enterprise, how much of India's industry comprises of this section?
Well, together the micro, small, medium enterprises contribute to almost 7% of the entire GDP in the country.
Okay.
But also contribute 45% of the total industrial production.
45% of industrial production?
And 85%.
That's almost half.
Exactly.
And we never see them on the pink pages.
Yes.
How odd is that?
Well, if you look at Economic Times, Financial Express and all the media coverage that you always get to know the large firms.
Yeah, but we're talking about half of industry is not being represented.
Yeah, the small size doesn't make it very attractive. But if you put it together, it becomes a very sizable number.
Yeah, the pennies make the pound. Okay, right then. So I'm getting from what you're saying that it's absolutely critical that we get this sector covered in every way possible. Give us more perspective, Mukesh. You've been at it for so long. Tell us more about the sector that we need to know.
See, this sector is basically a nursery of lot of entrepreneurship.
Okay.
It also helps to provide more of equality, I will say.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many people who would have otherwise been jobless because this is a sector which actually contributes to 85% of the total employment in the manufacturing sector.
Again, repeat that.
This sector is the one that contributes to 85% of the total employment in the manufacturing sector.
85%. That is crazy number.
Now, these are the firms on which there is a lot of issue of productivity, competitiveness, and a lot of them are actually at the threshold of just survival and not really growing at the pace that they could have. Many of these...
micro going to small
Yes.
going to medium, that sort of thing.
Yes. The graduation and the post-graduation. Those examples are very anecdotal and very few that we are aware about. But there is a whole lot of possibility of plucking some of the low-hanging fruits and ensure that these firms are covered in terms of the their productivity and competitiveness angles.
Okay.
And this is exactly what we essentially do.
Okay. We're going to come back and talk some more with Mukesh Gulati, and he is behind the foundation for micro, small, medium enterprise and the backbone, I would say, of this country. All the more reason why we need to exercise and strengthen that backbone. So stay tuned for our conversation. Got lots of great music coming up. 13 minutes past 9. Don't go anywhere.
With Chris.
Radio 1.
Right then, you can tell yourself that when you're cruising down the highway. I'm a highway star, just like Deep Purple intended it. But be careful to take it easy on the road, all right? Because, your life is precious. All right, we're getting down to conversation this morning, and it's with Mukesh Gulati. He is behind the foundation of micro, small and medium enterprises, which from what he told us, incidentally, is 45% of industrial output in this country. Very important conversation indeed. And, it's basically, it's your first step into entrepreneurship, isn't it? Just about everybody has started from there. It's your baby steps.
That's right.
Right? So, Mukesh, I'm going to, since you've been behind, you've been working on this sector for the last 25 years. You've written books. You've behind, trying to involve yourself into frame the right policies in this particular area. Let's talk about some of the most important things, which is responsibility and sustainability. And this seems to be a pet subject for you. Go ahead.
The micro, small, medium enterprises are already doing a number of responsibility-related works. They are so much involved in their religious activities that they sometimes set up dispensaries, set up pitchers for providing drinking water facilities to the roadside people, and also take care of the workers in many different ways. But yet there are a number of what are called internal systems and processes which can lead to much greater resource efficiency. More energy efficiency improvements. And if these are the kind of things which can be done, these provide a lot of business case for the enterprises.
Right.
But quite often either the technology is missing, or the methods are not known, or there are no benchmarkings available, or the incentives are lacking, which is what makes many of these small enterprises operate at a below par level of thresholds. And there are different ways by which one can essentially help them prod into a higher productivity level aspects. And this can essentially be done either by regulations or by marketplace mechanisms or by providing some kind of group-based systems which can enable a positive competition among groups of enterprises to move ahead.
So we need to be talking about this because we need what? For them to, from a micro to go to a small, we need graduation, right?
That's right.
But we want that. Do they want it?
Yes, many of them want, but then the percentage is still smaller because most of the small enterprises are comfortable at a level where they can possibly manage their enterprises with that kind of a labor and with that kind of a technology also. Because the moment you are looking at a much higher level, look at a Kirana shop, for example. Imagine a Kirana shop trying to graduate into a modern retail store.
Right.
It involves a hugely different amount of investment,
Right.
a very different kind of a labor management
And
system.
an attitudinal change even for the
Absolutely.
person running it. I mean, I would imagine it's a gargantuan task.
Both of them look like a retail store.
Right.
But a Kirana store and a modern retail store
Yeah.
are a different world altogether.
Why do we need but for graduation to happen? I mean, if they don't want it, then why are we even pushing for it?
We just essentially need to provide some kind of a framework so that those who want to graduate can graduate.
Sure.
Second, I think is very important from the national perspective, is that the productivity level should be high. The resources should not be wasted.
Exactly.
The energy should not be depleted.
But who's going to take the trouble and the time out to tell them that? Who's going to do that?
See, the government has already a lot of system, technical, institutional framework and subsidy programs which are available for this. And the government is also supporting any of individual and group level ventures. Are you aware that there are 140 different schemes of assistance available at the central government through different ministries?
That's incredible. That's really something. So I see there doesn't seem to be any dearth of policy for them, but it's just a matter of now taking it to them and making them aware and being able for them to be able to implement it. More conversation with Mukesh Gulati about the Foundation for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise. Stay tuned. We're having this conversation right here. Got lots of great music coming up. It's 9:28. Good morning.
This is Good Morning Delhi with Chris.
Radio 1.
Well, that was Marky Mark, and that was Good Vibrations right here on 94.3 Radio 1. You'll get good vibrations right here on the show. And, of course, it's 9:39, and my conversation this morning is with Mukesh Gulati. He is with the Foundation for Micro, Small, Medium Enterprise. It's an important conversation because, God knows, it seems that it's this section that's propping up a majority of this country. So much of the labor happens in this particular sector. So much. How much labor are we talking over here, Mukesh?
Almost 85% of the industrial labor.
85% of industrial labor, which you're talking about almost all of India, frankly. And so much of the industrial output also happens from the sector. But funnily enough, not enough of them get registered. You're saying 95% of them don't register.
That's right.
That's a crazy number. Why?
It takes a lot of time to get oneself registered.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many laws which need to be complied with. Mm-hmm. And the windows are too many to get across to.
Okay.
So I've seen enterprises paying bribes to get themselves registered and ensuring that so many different compliances have to be made, and it can take 6 months before you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why
6 months
small.
is a long time. It could, you're trying to get something afloat, and all your energy has just been sapped with just getting it registered, which frankly is, it doesn't add anything to how that enterprise is going to do.
That's right. And therefore, it's very important that we have systems which are more enabling in nature. Mm-hmm. The ease of doing business is very critical. Mm-hmm. If we want our enterprises to, generate more employment, mm-hmm. and also to grow, mm-hmm. and also to ensure that greater production, greater efficiency of production happens, mm-hmm. this is very critical. Mm-hmm. And for consistently, I think for the last 4 decades, India has been at a way below levels in terms of ease of doing business. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to micro, small enterprises, their ability to deal with so many laws is also very problematic.
I think they tend to confuse ease of doing business with being lax.
That's true.
That someone's getting away, but guess what? Everyone's getting away. If you're talking 95% are not being registered, that means I have no data. If you don't know somebody exists, how are you even going to check what they're doing?
It can take 5 years before you get to know and get a hang of what is actually happening across different subsectors and sectors. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of time because many of the business cycles themselves are that long. Mm-hmm. So by the time you get to know what the firms are doing, the sector may have been, either at the trough or at the crest.
Right.
Completely changed.
Yeah, of course, because, things are moving so fast now in terms of industry. And so what do we do, Mukesh? Because you've been at it for so long, what do you suggest?
I think it's important that we involve more and more the industry associations now into this
Mm-hmm.
space of what you call registration, mm-hmm. regulations,
right.
and work in partnership with the government. Mm-hmm. Because to reach out to 3 crores of enterprises and 6 crore people, mm-hmm. you need an army of people to, mm-hmm. at the government level to be able to do that. And mm-hmm. we can't afford that. Mm-hmm. So there are systems available globally also mm-hmm. that we need to benchmark with and then come up with newer models mm-hmm. to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right, okay. We're having some interesting conversation. I hope you're enjoying it. Mukesh Gulati here in the studio with me. We're talking about micro, small and medium enterprises, which is frankly, we need to launch a newspaper for them.
We should. And maybe even a TV channel.
Maybe a TV channel. It's 9:42 and don't go anywhere. Lots of great music coming up and so will we.
This is Good Morning Delhi with Chris.
Radio 1.
That was Hanson with Bop. It's 9:52 and last bit of conversation with Mukesh Gulati, and he is with the Foundation for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise. And so much of India actually just functions on this particular section of industry. And so we were talking about how we could start getting them to be more included and be a part of the mainstream. And you mentioned the National Voluntary Guideline, you said? You want to expand on that a bit, Mukesh?
The National Voluntary Guidelines have been just instituted by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs,
Okay.
which essentially provide a framework, not through regulations, not through subsidies and incentives,
Okay.
but by a way of suggesting an Indian way of doing a responsible business.
Let's hear it.
And the Indian way of doing responsible business is not only about doing your business more efficiently, but also contributing to the society at large, at the environmental level, at the society level. And that's why this Section 135 of the New Companies Act has come in,
Okay.
which essentially prods some select firms at the large level to contribute through project mode.
Okay.
And there are 8 areas which they have talked about. This is the way of, contributing back to the society. But when it comes to micro, small enterprises, I think they will also probably come into the fold over a period of time. And we need to build upon what they're already doing. But what is more important is that this must be linked up with the business. And that's where the procurement of a lot of material which the government buys, that this business responsibility aspect can be brought into. And so also with the big buyers, both within India and abroad, which have supply chain linkages with the micro, small, medium enterprises.
But what would the government be doing procuring from anyway? They would be...
See, the procurement can be done purely on the basis of price, which is the lowest price.
Okay.
Or it can add in certain other mechanisms to find out if the firms are also doing their bit for the environment and the society at large.
Okay. Like, for example, internationally,
Exactly.
garments, all these big chains insist that certain, codes are met before they will, procure from a firm, right? A government firm.
Call that responsible procurement.
Yeah. So you're saying government can also do that?
Exactly. Government has already come up with a law which says that 20% of their total requirement will be sourced from the micro, small, medium enterprises. And that alone can be a way by which corruption can be reduced significantly by having more transparent mechanisms. It can also lead to greater amount of efficiencies.
Right.
They can also look into the procurement angles, whether the labor is being taken care of, whether the occupational health and safety standards are being met or not.
Okay, so you're saying that government can start procuring on the basis of meeting all these guidelines?
Yes, and that can be a business case for it.
Sort of like how you have 4 or 5 stars on a refrigerator.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, I get it. That sounds like some pretty sound advice. Let's hope that we start moving in that direction, because God only knows how many of Indians are actually employed in this section. All the more reason why they all need to come within this framework, right?
That's right.
And speaking of corruption, it seems that that's not going to leave us alone for a while. We've got a lot of work to be done on that. I was reading a Time poll, Mukesh, where people were asked what was, in their opinion, the number one problem in the world, and corruption came up as number one.
Right.
So...
And this is an ill that most of the small enterprises also live with. And they're looking forward to
they suffer in
ways of-
silence, I'm sure. It's one of those. All right, thank you so much for coming over. Obviously, we're far from done on this conversation, but maybe we'll get another chance to connect. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you,
over.
Chris.
Yeah.